In this talk, I'm going to discuss a subject that I designed while an academic at Swinburne University of Technology. The subject is called Advanced Topics in Neurosciences and is taught as in semester 1 of the third year of the Neuroscience major within the Bachelor of Health Science degree. I left the university at the end of 2018. In 2020, my collaborator David Sly succeeded me as the Neuroscience major convener, and James Keane became the subject coordinator and principal instructor in the subject in the same year. What is authentic assessment? Authentic assessment or authentic learning activities are tasks which focus on the learning process rather than the learning content. They require students not just to demonstrate knowledge or factual recall in certain specific content areas, but also to demonstrate skills that are potentially transferable and translatable into real-world activities outside of the academic experience. An authentic assessment task asks students to engage in higher-order academic skills to complete the task, and potentially to generate an artifact or product as evidence of their mastery of both the content and the process. In my opinion, authentic assessment should be demonstrating the skills that we might describe as inherent in lifelong learning. While it may seem that the idea of asking students to partner in writing just subject content may be a radical departure from existing norms, I would contend that for many of us, it is largely about rebadging and perhaps re-emphasizing the existing standards of practice. In my own discipline, the sciences, while we are often obsessively focused with content, by the time third-year subjects emerge, and certainly for honours projects in laboratory, it is the norm that students are involved in independent research on topics of their own choosing. In designing this subject as student-generated content, I had two major aims. Firstly, to transition students from thinking that knowledge is resolved and definitive. To teach students that not all answers are found in the textbooks or in the sage-like wisdom of their lecturers. Students need to grasp that there is a gap between the certainty and absolute nature of textbooks and our current best understanding. Indeed, it is also possible that our current best understanding is contestable and open to differences in interpretation. The second aim was to shift student thinking away from what we know to how we know it. That is, I wanted the students to evaluate the evidence that have led to the conclusions and the state of existing knowledge. This also incorporates giving the students an appreciation of the technologies and procedures that are available for investigation and experimental design, and what experimental outcomes look like. So let's talk about advanced topics in neuroscience. As indicated on this slide, there are three major activities in this subject happening in parallel. There is the journal club, the literature review, and the research seminars. Both the journal club and the literature review are assessed activities. Similarly, both these activities are involved elements of peer assessment. There are a number of andragogical reasons to engage students in peer-to-peer review, which I don't have time to pursue here. The main purpose of the journal club was to provide students with instruction and experience in critically reading and evaluating primary research literature. The literature review was also a team-based activity. In their team, students propose their own research question on any topic in neuroscience. Students are instructed that they will work collaboratively to investigate the primary research literature and to write a narrative literature review, asking key questions like, what do we know? What is the cumulative evidence that has led to these conclusions? And what is the future direction of research or the unresolved issues in the research in the topic area? As an incentive for excellence, the students were also told that high-quality manuscripts could be further refined with the intention to publish in some form or other. Finally, the research seminar series. I invited honours, masters and PhD students from Neuroscience Research Institutes in Victoria to present their work to our students. Predominantly, these students came from Florey Neurosciences, and I thank the Florey Neuroscience Student Society for their engagement and participation. As near peer neuroscientists to the undergraduate students in the cohort, the students in advanced neurosciences could have visualized themselves as soon being those people presenting their research. Further, the seminars demonstrate that neuroscience is not an abstract concept done somewhere remote, but was actually a tangible activity done here in Victoria. And this ties back to my intended outcomes, which was to bridge the divide between the received wisdom of textbooks and lecturers and revealing a more nuanced and open-ended state of play of open-ended research activity. The literature review had several steps. The literature search, which increased digital literacy skills. At a midpoint through the semester, I invited the student to submit a draft manuscript plan, which promoted the idea of the students reading the primary research literature, organising their understanding into a single narrative. And I asked the students to submit a draft manuscript in week 10 to facilitate a peer review process. I deliberately built into the learning activity of peer review process similar to a typical academic peer review process. It is my view that the ability to critically review a peer's work and to address and to respond to critical feedback are not merely academic skills, but part of a normal workplace culture. Peer review is a generalizable skill. The peer review had another objective. It pushed reviewers beyond the narrow scope of their own research and asked them to evaluate the content of another specialist research area. Indirectly, I have now exposed the students to student-generated content and expanded the students' understanding of contemporary neuroscience research. After the peer review, the manuscript authors were then required to respond to the reviewer comments, both by modifying their manuscripts to address the comment, but also in writing a memo outlining how they have responded to the feedback. One observation that I have repeatedly made in my teaching career is how poorly students respond to feedback. The value of formative feedback is only evident when the students pay attention to it. In asking the students to write a memo on their own response to the feedback, we have created a task that actually engages the students in the review process. As we can see from the quantitative student feedback scores, in the years 2018 and 2020, the students gave the subject outstanding feedback scores. I can't tell you what happened in 2019 as none of the authors on this abstract were involved in the subject at that time. Several key themes have emerged from the qualitative feedback. One is that students hate teamwork. This feedback is from 2018 and it is evident from the students' comments that more effort and emphasis needs to be placed on training students for teamwork and managing team dynamics. Something that I am sure we can all relate to in our real work life. Another key theme to emerge from the students themselves was recognizing the authenticity of the learning experience. These next two slides are direct quotes from students. In addition to noting the real-life outcomes, this student also discusses the motivation the prospects of publishing their work had on their attitude and engagement. Here the student discusses their own personal growth and maturation of writing skills going through the learning activity. It is clear that the students found that talking with their near peers about their research made the possibility of doing research real for the undergraduate students. Note the emphasis on real nature of the presentation. From focus group interviews and student feedback, it is evident that the students found peer review activities in the subject the most difficult to manage and most prone to gaming. We heard from students that they would make pacts with each other and wade through each other's assessment tasks. Part of this comes down to training. Some form of assessment literacy training needs to be provided to encourage the students to believe that they are qualified to peer assess and provide informed peer feedback on their peers' work. Thank you very much.